Saraland's Ryan Williams received Mr. Football for the back-to-back year, first time ever to happen. You said something about how important Ryan Williams was to Kalen DeBoer the other day before he even committed back to Alabama. Put it into context again, what you said.
Well, I mean, I think it does have a little bit shades of Nick Saban getting Julio Jones. I think everybody knew Nick Saban could recruit when he came to Alabama. But until you sign that big-time first recruit, you're like, how's this going to go? And obviously, Nick Saban had to go convince Julio Jones to sign with Alabama. Ryan Williams is already committed, but, the fact that he decommitted within moments of the Nick Saban retirement story breaking, made it appear that this was going to be a tough sell to get him back in. You had to go sell him on yourself and not just the University of Alabama. So to get him to recommit showed that Kalen DeBoer could go sell him on his vision and Ryan Grubb's vision of what an offense would look like. Because when you decommit right after Nick Saban's announcement retirement breaks, that is saying I was committed to Alabama in large part because of Nick Saban. I'm going to take some time to think about this.
Yeah, within hours he decommitted.
Yeah, within hours. So that showed you how much his commitment was tied to Nick Saban. So this showed that Ryan Williams sat down with Kalen DeBoer and very much likes his vision for him and for his offense and for Alabama football. So I thought it was a big moment when it seemed like bad news got stacked on top of bad news, got stacked on top of bad news. This was one of the first moments where it turned back around good for the Kalen DeBoer administration.
Yeah, Ryan Williams, the name Julio Jones was brought up at Mr. Football yesterday, and Ryan has a feeling about Julio's career in Tuscaloosa and what his career in Tuscaloosa could be like.
I really accept the challenge because, he's a great football player, but I know I put the work in, so I think with more work and what I'm going to do in the future, I could potentially be better than him. So.
Okay, is that a high bar to set for yourself? You don't
definitely. I always set a high bar for myself. Everyone else, their bars, they're lower than what I expect from myself.
That's Ryan Williams, who thinks he could be better than Julio Jones in Tuscaloosa.
I would have to say, if his numbers, now listen, you're going to have to hear this whole sentence, what I'm about to say. Julio Jones played in a different era of college football. Now, it was only 14 years ago, by the way, Jim. 14 years. Can you believe that was his last year? 14 years ago?
It was a long time.
It's been that long, yeah. He's already played an entire NFL career. He's about to retire and probably go to the Hall of Fame at some point. 14 years ago, Julio Jones, or maybe go to the Hall of Fame. He played in a different world of college football. I will be surprised. Well, let me say it this way. If Ryan Williams is who everybody thinks he is, if Ryan Williams is what they now, I was unfamiliar with this lingo, but now he is a 5-star plus is what they call him. I don't know what the plus means. I don't know if we're about to add a 6th star, but he's a 5-star plus is the way I've seen him described. If he is that, if he is what people think he is, I will be stunned if his numbers are not better than Julio Jones. Now, you may look at it and say, no. Julio was a better technical route runner. He was more physical. He did this better or that better.
Different offenses.
That's all going to be subjective. But the way college football is played now, I will be surprised if Ryan Williams' numbers aren't better than Julio Jones' numbers. If you just make it a statistical comparison.
Day one starter, you say?
Oh, I think so. In that wide receiver room, yeah. I think so. But, gosh, I'm trying to think. Who would be a good comparison? I'll tell you what I'll do.
Well, Preston brings up a great point.
All right.
Loved Julio then, love him now. Feel like we forget how great of a run blocker he was. No, he fit what they were trying to do perfectly.
Very, very physical guy.
Patrick says 5-star plus just means you got to pay more for them than the 5-star. 5-star plus is like a streaming service, Brown. You want it ad-free, you got to pay an extra $2.99 a month for a 5-star plus.
Who would you say had more receiving touchdowns in college, John Mechie or Julio Jones?
In college?
In college. These are all going to be Alabama-related questions.
I would say John Mechie.
Julio Jones by 1, 15 to 14.
By the way, Lunsford back row said Julio had size, Ryan does not.
No. Now, listen. The subjective part is going to be up to you. Yeah. I'm making a statistical comparison.
This guy's bringing very much a Devontae Smith body into college, correct? Yeah, okay. Lunsford gives me the nod.
Well, probably not as Lunsford, is he as skinny as I have not seen him in person. You've seen him in person, Lunsford.
169, I'm told.
He's as skinny as Devontae Smith?
He's very skinny, very small. I mean, the thing is, that's why I wrote Cam Coleman, because everybody's comparing Cam Coleman and Ryan Williams now, especially going to Alabama and Auburn. Cam Coleman's like 6'4", 190. Ryan Williams is like 6 flat, 160. I mean, he's really small. Just looking at the measurables, which a lot of times you do, just looking at that, it's like this kid's like really tiny and like not. And you think about how big Julio was. I mean, he was that big in high school too. So that's why it's like in your mind you can't envision him being that good. But then you watch him play, and then it's like, oh, he actually is kind of that good.
Yeah, but seeing him on the stage there, Mr. Football, Forrester has the picture up. He doesn't look as skinny as Devontae in that picture right there.
No, he does not. Devontae Smith he was rail thin, and it has not affected him one bit.
But to your point about Cam Coleman, Lunsford, I sort of like a little bit more meat on the bones. You know what I mean?
Oh, he's a lot bigger. That's why he's one of those that's a great like go up and get it kind of receiver.
Now Bobby compares him to Larry Fitzgerald or Mike Evans. Now I'm not skill wise yet. You can't make that comparison. Cam Coleman, yeah. But size
Mike
wise,
Evans is pretty good.
Huh?
Mike Evans is a pretty good.
That's a good comparison size wise. Yeah.
Yeah. Mike Evans, Alabama had no answer for him.
I remember that
against Texas A&M a couple of times.
Had they played Larry Fitzgerald, they probably had no answer for him too. Very few did. Now listen, Devontae Smith is the greatest receiver in Alabama football history. Okay, so when I bring up this comparison to Julio Jones, I'm just showing you the difference there. And Devontae Smith played 4 years, but he really didn't do anything his freshman year. Only had 8 catches. So primarily, this is 3 years versus 3 years with he and Julio Jones. Devontae Smith, and this number may surprise some people if you haven't looked at it, in comparison to Julio Jones, has 1,300 more receiving yards. 1,300 more receiving yards than Julio Jones.
Wow.
The touchdowns are nowhere close. Julio Jones had 15 touchdowns. Devontae Smith had 46. Now, Devontae Smith's the best to ever do it at Alabama. I'm not saying those are the numbers that you're going to get out of a Ryan Williams, but I am saying Devontae Smith played in a different era than Julio Jones did. If you'd have dropped Julio Jones in that era that Devontae Smith played, Julio's numbers probably would have looked a lot like that. So I'm just saying statistically, if Ryan Williams is what everybody says he is, I will be surprised if his numbers aren't better than Julio Jones. That would surprise me.
Yeah.
Will he be a better receiver than him? I don't know. That's up to you. You've got to decide that for yourself subjectively. But objectively, when you look at statistics, I will be surprised if his numbers aren't better than Julio Jones.
Yeah. Got to have a line to protect and the quarterback to get him the ball. One was to win the national championship. If one wants to win the national championship, it says Chris there. You do. You gotta have a quarterback that can get the ball. Devontae had that when he was there. Julio was in a different era when they played a lot more of the what they call it, the murder ball.
Yeah. I mean, it was more of a run offense. It wasn't as sophisticated a pass game as Devontae Smith had when he was playing with Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and Mac Jones. I mean, he was getting the ball delivered to him a lot.